Most men waste hours trying to figure out how to stay on her mind. They overthink every message, replay conversations, and wonder what they should say next. But the truth is simple. Just 3 words, when said the right way, can make her think about you again and again without you doing anything extra. And no, I'm not talking about the obvious line like, I love you. I'm talking about words that slide quietly under her skin and activate the part of her brain that keeps replaying you like a favorite song she didn't even realize she put on repeat. Here's the real secret most people miss. Women don't obsess over looks or perfection. They obsess over how someone makes them feel. Beauty fades, perfection gets boring, but feeling stays. And if your words make her feel something no one else does, you don't just become interesting, you become unforgettable. That's why these 3 simple words matter so much. I'll share them with you soon. But before that, you need to understand why most men get this completely wrong. Most men believe attraction comes from doing more texting, more explaining, more chasing, more effort to prove they care. They think if they just show enough interest, she'll finally feel it too. But obsession doesn't grow from effort, it grows from impact. The right words don't just reach her ears for a moment, they echo in her mind long after the conversation ends. They show up when she's alone, they return when she's quiet, they resurface when she least expects it. And before I give you these exact 3 words, stay with me until the end because I'll also explain how to use them in a way that feels natural, not forced, not obvious, not rehearsed. When used correctly, she never sees it coming, but she always remembers you. Imagine a woman thinking about you all day without you sending constant messages, without you chasing her attention, without you trying to become some perfect version of yourself. Just 3 simple words. That's it. 3 words that, when used the right way, can be the difference between being just another man she forgets by tomorrow or the one who stays in her thoughts long after you've gone quiet. Let's clear something up right now. This is not a cheap trick. It's not a movie line. And it's definitely not a silly gimmick meant to control or manipulate her. This is real. It's grounded in deep psychology and in how attraction actually works beneath the surface. I'm talking about the part of the mind Carl Jung studied his entire life, the unconscious mind, that hidden place where real desire lives. Most people think attraction is logical. They believe it works like a checklist. He's handsome, he's smart, he's kind, he has a good job. Okay, I'm interested. But that's not how it truly works. If it were that simple, dating apps would have solved love a long time ago. The truth is the connections that move us the most aren't logical at all. They're emotional, they're symbolic, they live in the part of the mind you can't see but you can feel. Jung explained this perfectly when he said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will guide your life, and you will call it fate." Think about that for a moment, the memories that stay with you, the moments that linger, when someone's smile feels different, when a simple comment touches something deep inside you, when a glance feels like an entire conversation. None of that is planned. Those are emotional triggers. They slip past logic and hit your core. They wake something inside you that you didn't even know was asleep. This is where many men go wrong. They try to create that feeling by doing more messages, more checking in, more effort just to be noticed. But the harder you try, the less magnetic you become. Because true attraction doesn't come from effort. It comes from resonance, from the calm but lasting impression you leave behind. You create that when your words and energy bypass her conscious filter and go straight into her unconscious mind. This is exactly why those 3 words matter. They work because they're not just words, they're symbols. They plant an image in her mind. They invite her into a quiet story she can't help but imagine herself inside. And once that image takes root in the part of her mind that holds emotion and meaning, you're no longer competing for her attention like everyone else. You've entered a different space entirely. You become the man she thinks about, even when she doesn't fully understand why. So, here's my promise to you. By the end of this, you won't just know what to say. You'll understand why it works on a deeper level. This has nothing to do with tricks. and everything to do with psychology. This isn't about making her obsessed for a few days and then fading away. This is about creating a connection that pulls her emotionally and lasts because it touches something symbolic inside her. It's not magic, it's not manipulation, it's simply how the human brain works. Once you understand this, you stop chasing, you stop stressing, and you stop trying to be perfect. You realize you don't need flawless lines or constant communication. You only need to know how to speak in a way her unconscious mind remembers, and that understanding starts here. Here's a truth most people never talk about. Attraction doesn't begin in the logical part of the brain. It doesn't start with lists or checkboxes. It doesn't care about being nice, kind, successful, or good looking in the way people think. Those things matter later, but they don't create the spark. The connections that stay with us, that quietly haunt us in the best way, are emotional first and logical later. This is what Carl Jung spent his life studying. He showed that the human mind is driven just as much, if not more, by symbols, patterns, and unconscious pulls as it is by reason. We like to believe we're making smart, conscious choices, but in reality, the unconscious arrives first. That's why Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will guide your life and you'll call it fate. In simple terms, until you understand what's pulling the strings underneath, you'll think things just happen randomly. You'll say you just clicked with someone, but that click isn't random. It's emotional and symbolic. Something in their words, their tone, their presence speaks directly to your unconscious, skipping logic completely. And this is where most men unintentionally block themselves from creating that kind of connection. Think about how most conversations begin. Something polite, something safe, something flat. Hey, how are you? How was your day? Hope you're doing well. These lines aren't bad. They're just invisible. They don't spark emotion. They don't create an image. They don't cut through the noise of her day. And if nothing you say stirs her emotionally, there's nothing for her mind to hold on to later. No hook, no replay. Here's something important to understand. The mind doesn't store words, it stores feelings. You might not remember the exact sentence someone said years ago, but you remember how they made you feel in that moment. That's emotional anchoring. Without it, even a pleasant conversation fades into the same dull blur as everything else. The unconscious mind doesn't respond to perfect grammar, flawless logic, or safe topics. It responds to symbols, images, and suggestion. That's why a single line with the right energy can be more powerful than dozens of long messages. Jung understood that what moves us most is often invisible to the rational mind. When your words carry subtle emotion, they slip past her mental guard. She's no longer replying just to be polite. She's replying because something in what you said touched an emotional thread she didn't even realize existed. And once that happens, you've already stood out. So if your goal is to leave an impression that lasts, you have to stop leading with empty, emotionless lines. The next time you talk to a woman you like, ask yourself a simple question. Does this create an image? Does it spark curiosity? Does it move an emotion? Or is it just filler? Because filler disappears, emotion stays. The moment you understand that attraction is built in the unconscious, not in polite exchanges, everything changes. You stop trying to impress with perfection. You start aiming for emotional resonance. That's when you move from being just another conversation to being the memory she keeps returning to. Let's be honest, most conversations sound the same. Hey, how are you? How was your day? Hope. Everything's good. It's kind, it's safe, and it's completely forgettable. Kindness matters, yes, but when it comes to attraction, safe is often the fastest way to fade into the background. Polite, neutral greetings don't activate the emotional part of the brain. They're placeholders. They don't create a picture. They don't spark feeling. And if you don't give the brain something emotional to hold on to, there's nothing to anchor the memory. Most people don't realize this, but the mind isn't like a recorder saving every word. It's more like an artist. It sketches moments that feel meaningful and blurs everything else into the background. You forget exact words, but you remember the feeling, the laugh, the curiosity, the warmth. That's how emotional anchoring works. When you open with, hey, how are you? Her mind files it next to hundreds of similar messages she's already seen. It doesn't stand out, so it doesn't get replayed, and if you don't stand out early, you're already forgettable. Think about scent for a moment. Have you ever smelled a perfume or cologne and suddenly remembered someone from years ago? That's because scent is directly connected to memory and emotion in the brain. Words work the same way. When they carry feeling, they connect to emotion. And emotion is what gets stored. So the issue isn't that you reached out, it's how you did it. You spoke without meaning, without image, without emotional weight. You didn't light up the emotional wiring. You didn't create a moment she could feel. And without that, there's nothing for her mind to return to later. And this is where everything starts to shift, because once you understand this, you realize attraction isn't about chasing attention. It's about creating moments that quietly stay, moments that feel small on the surface but deep underneath. Moments that her unconscious keeps revisiting without her trying to, wired to notice change. Anything that breaks a normal pattern, anything that interrupts the automatic rhythm of daily life, gets marked by the brain as important. This wiring comes from survival. Thousands of years ago, noticing something different could mean the difference between finding food or becoming food. The brain learned very early that difference equals attention. Today, that same wiring still exists, just applied in a new way. Instead of predators or shelter, it notices people. It notices energy. It notices presence. So when you open with something that makes her pause, something that pulls her out of her routine scrolling or distracted state, you are activating that novelty switch. You are waking up a part of her mind that most interactions never touch. And if what you say doesn't just break her pattern, but also stirs curiosity or emotion, now you've created something stronger. You've created a double anchor. She's not just noticing you in that moment. Her brain is also tagging you as someone worth thinking about again later. That's where attraction quietly begins to grow. But here's the warning most men miss. Novelty without emotion doesn't last. It's just a clever or funny line. It might get a smile, maybe even a quick laugh, but then it fades. It disappears the same way hundreds of other messages disappear. You need both. You need something unexpected and something that makes her feel something even lightly, because emotion is the glue that makes novelty stick. That's why there is such a big difference between saying something generic like "how are you" and saying something playful, charged, or slightly mysterious. One blends into the noise, the other slips past her guard and settles into her memory. And in attraction, the moment you take up emotional space in someone's mind, the dynamic shifts. You are no longer just another name on a screen. You become a presence. Here's the trap that most men don't even realize they are stepping into. You start sounding like everyone else. Same greetings, same safe questions, same predictable rhythm. And when you blend in like that, you vanish. It's not that she dislikes you. It's not that you did something wrong. It's simply that nothing in your words created a moment worth holding on to. You become part of the background noise of her day, not the song she hums later, not the line she remembers, just noise. And because on some level you feel that you're not standing out, you try harder. You send longer messages, you add more emojis, you give bigger compliments, you ask question after question just to keep the conversation alive. You try to show effort, you try to show interest. But here's the hard truth. That behavior doesn't pull her closer. It often does the opposite. It pushes her away. The unconscious mind doesn't respond well to pressure. Even when that pressure is polite and friendly, attraction needs space to breathe. It grows in that quiet tension between wanting more and not having everything yet. When you flood her with attention, you remove that tension. Instead of feeling curious, she starts to feel weighed down. What once felt light and easy now feels like something she has to manage. Excessive effort also changes the emotional balance. Instead of her wondering if she can win you over, she starts to feel like the prize has already been handed to her. And human psychology places higher value on what feels earned. When something feels too available, the mind quietly assumes it has less worth. This isn't logical, it's instinctive, and constant questioning is one of the fastest ways to drain intrigue. It turns the interaction into an interview. It feels like work, not play. Now, asking questions isn't wrong. The right question asked at the right moment can create deep connection, but when questions are fired rapidly just to avoid silence, they send a message you don't intend. They say you're uncomfortable with space. They say you're more focused on filling gaps than creating moments. And attraction is not built on filling space, it's built on impact. It's not about how much you say, it's about what you leave behind after you've spoken. Your real goal is not to cover every pause or prove how interested you are. Your goal is to create sparks, small flashes of novelty, curiosity, and emotion that stand out against the dull background of everyday conversations. Think of it this way. If every other man is handing her a bucket of water, you want to be the one holding a match. Water is safe. Water is common. A match changes the atmosphere instantly. A match has heat. A match has danger. A match makes someone stop and look. It creates a moment. That's the difference between being background noise and being music. Carl Jung often spoke about the power of symbols and emotional resonance. When you speak in a way that hints at possibility, when you paint even a small picture in her mind, you are not just making conversation. You are engaging her unconscious. And that's where real attraction lives. That's why instead of chasing her attention with more words, more flattery, and more effort, the strongest move is often to step back, create space, let your presence and your choice of words do the work. Give her room to feel you, not just read you. When you stop trying to outtalk every other man in her inbox and start focusing on impact, you move from being background static to being the signal she tunes into without knowing exactly why. And this is where